Hello, my name is Miri Lenoff. We're here with Brad Cohen, and we're very excited to have our guest for today. So, everybody who's watching, thank you so much for joining us. This is the Investing Across the Borders show because we do this every single week at 12:30. We have amazing guests. We talk about different topics that are important about whenever you're investing, living, playing, or working abroad, whatever it is. And we're here to help anybody who needs help with their cross-border needs. And that's why today we have Brad, who is going to tell us a little bit about himself. But before that, the topic of this conversation is going to be important financial considerations when exiting Canada. And not a lot of people know this, but it's important, so you want to be covered. So, Brad, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get started.
Hi, Mary. Hi, everybody. So I'm a Canadian. I live here in Canada, in Toronto. I know it sounds Toronto. Anybody who's from here knows I'm pronouncing it wrong. That's fine. I've worked with Lauren a few times and many of her clients and the Investing Across Borders team, helping people because of a lot of the financial considerations that we have to have. I'm a financial security advisor, so I do insurance investments, including life insurance, health insurance, and all the RSPs, TFSAs. So I have an idea of what we need to think about if we're actually, as a Canadian who's thinking about leaving the country, what you need to think about and what you need to do going out of the country, especially if you're going to stay for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, that's super important. So I see some people are live. So if you want to say hi, please just post your comments so we can properly thank you for being here. So Brad, why don't we get started? I know we have a topic, a whole list of topics that we want to get to. So because we're talking about all of these financial considerations, let's start with life insurance. 'Cause I think that a lot of people don't know about some of the aspects that have to deal with that.
Thank you. That's actually a good one to start. Life insurance is one of those things. Once you're in the system, as they say, you're in the system. We don't kick you out. If you are planning on moving to the States at the time that you apply for life insurance, they might actually refuse you because they have a limit on how many non-Canadians they can have in their system at a time. Having said that, once if you've been approved and you've gotten the life insurance and then you move, there's no problem. Your life insurance stays in place. I've done some comparisons between life insurance available in the U.S. and life insurance available in Canada, and depending on your age range and what you're looking for, how much, all of your health, all of these things, sometimes it's actually cheaper to get it in Canada and sometimes it's cheaper to get it in the States. So it's always good before you make a final decision. If you're considering life insurance as part of your long-term financial plan, let's talk about it before you go so that we know that we have the right thing in place, because once you're gone, you can't apply for the Canadian one anymore, but once you're in the States, you can still apply for the American one, right? So
Right. So, would you have any, maybe any advice when somebody is ready to leave and they're planning the move, specifically when it comes to life insurance? What are some of the steps that they can take to make sure that they're covered and they don't have any bridge in between the move and which life insurance that they need to follow? Or what would you tell somebody who's ready to make the move and get a visa? Specifically with life insurance? What should be the timeline specifically?
So if you're thinking about it, if especially because you want to make sure if you're going to end up with Canadian life insurance, again, understand it's Canadian payouts. So again, it's a little bit different. It's Canadian premiums and Canadian payouts. But if you're going to be doing it, you should do it 6 months to a year before you leave to make sure that it's in place and stable before you leave the country. Because if, one of the questions that they ask is, "Are you planning on leaving the country?" And if you say, "Yeah, I'm planning on moving to the States," they may actually just say no right up front. So if you've got a year before you go, that would be the best thing. If not, we can still try, but it's best the earlier you talk about it, the better, because you want to make sure that you have the right coverage depending on what your risk level is, how much money you plan on making, what your expenses are, mortgage that you might have in the States, all of those things you want to make sure are covered.
Yeah, definitely. And so that brings me to the next point. We talked about life insurance. What about health insurance specifically?
So health insurance is very important. My understanding is that health insurance for a newcomer to the U.S. is extremely limited. Once you have your green card, it's different. You can get health insurance like any American, and I mean, obviously, it's going to be more expensive than Canadian health insurance, but it's there. And so, what we generally recommend, because it can take about once you qualify for the green card, going to the states and then getting the green card and processing it can take up to 6 months in a lot of cases,
Mhm.
and that's amazingly around the amount of time that you have that OHIP will still stay in. But OHIP only covers for major things. They'll cover up to $400 a day. For minor things, $200 a day. Um, OHIP, by the way, Miri, you're not Canadian, so you don't know this stuff. OHIP
Right.
is like our social medicine here in Ontario. Every province has their own, and the numbers are approximately the same. I just know OHIP because this is the one that I have a lot of experience with. So it's
Mhm.
really very limited. If you think the average stay in a U.S. hospital can cost $3,800 for one day, that's average, which means sometimes it's a lot more. $400 is just not going to cover it. So getting extended health coverage, which is usually inexpensive, you get that for the 6 months that the Canadian health insurance will cover you as you move, and just make sure it's there. And then once you're there, we can refer you to somebody in the states that can look at your options once you're there. But please make sure for the trip down for the first couple of months. Make sure you have that health insurance. You don't want to go down there and find out socialized medicine is not a thing.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And I know for, my experience living in Florida, open enrollment and, there's all of those specifics that you have to be careful about when it comes to that. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
my
okay.
camera was just going fuzzy, I think, because I'm
It's
outdoors.
okay. It's okay. No problem. Yeah. So when it comes to specifically health insurance, do you recommend that people who are planning the move start to contact health insurance agents or people who can help them with health insurance once they get to the States? Or is
Right.
that something that they should prepare ahead?
So it kind of both. Health insurance for travel purposes, which is what we in Canada can do for the Canadians. Uh,
Yeah.
so you can hear I'm outside now because there's a horn blasting in the
It's
background.
okay.
Um, but health insurance for traveling, we can arrange the day before if you need to. I actually did one client as they were about 10 minutes away from the border driving across, and like, okay, so just pull over. Let's do the credit card because once you cross the border, it's a different world. So let's just make sure it's in. But yeah, we can do it, and we can do it for 6 months. We can do it for the whole family. There's no problem. And like with some exceptions, obviously, there's always some people that travel insurance won't cover because the risk is too high for them. Um,
Mm,
but then I also recommend as soon as you get down to Florida and you've found your place within a couple of weeks, find somebody down there that can help
yeah.
you. And again, I'm happy to refer somebody if they need it. I have a lot of contacts, as does Investing Across Borders has a lot of contacts that can help people. I
Yes.
think our contacts are all the same, um,
Yes.
and they can help out, and we can get people in as quickly as they need to, as we possibly can, as quickly as the law allows. We can get them
Yeah.
covered because the potential risk is so high in the U.S. that
Hmm.
it's just
Yeah.
not worth taking that risk.
Right, for sure. No, that's super important. If you're live, let us know if you have any questions, and we'll be live with Brad for another maybe 10 minutes. So if you have questions, he might be able to answer them. But I know that we recently had one of our guests, Gabby, who was talking about RRSPs, and I know that that's one of an important consideration as well as TFSAs. And this is specifically, obviously, more for Canadians.
Right.
But what can you tell us about those, and what are some of the things that we need to be careful about?
Okay, so just for those people that aren't really aware of the short forms, and I'll just kind of expand on them. RSPs are your registered retirement savings plans, which to an American, I believe, is a 401k, if I'm not mistaken. In Canada, we also have a thing that apparently does this US doesn't have. It's called the tax-free savings account, where you can put money in, and any growth remains tax-free for your lifetime. So there's limits on both of those. The RSP is limited to how much money you've made in past years, and it accumulates. And the TFSAs is a flat amount. These days, it's approximately, they increase it by about 6,000 a year every year from the time you're 18. So great, fantastic. You can, any money that you've already put in there stays in there. There's no effect whatsoever. Once you've left Canada, I'll talk about the RSPs first. Once you've left Canada, there's no problem. You can put more money in your RSP, but the advantage of putting money in an RSP generally is the tax savings because it comes off the top and it reduces your income. But when you're making income in the U.S., you don't do taxes in Canada, so you're not reducing anything. So I don't usually recommend that you participate or put money into your RSP when you're not in Canada. I mean, you can. There's no limit. There's no. I'm sorry. There's no limit. There's no restriction on it. You can do it. There's no problem, but there's no advantage. So why would you?
Right. Okay.
Um, the with TFSAs, with tax-free savings account, it increases. Like I said, it increases every year by about $6,000. So you can put money in. The day you are no longer a resident of Canada, you can't put money in anymore.
Mm.
And any money that gets put in is taxed at a rate of 1% a month, which means 12% a year. So
Wow.
it's ridiculous unless you're making 20% on it, and because you can't make that money investing in the U.S., right? There's
Right.
just no point in doing it. Don't use it. It's not worth using the tool that's there. However, if you decide to return to Canada, any unused space that you had before will still be unused. You cannot, if like I said, there's like a $6,000 every year that keeps growing. If you're out of Canada for 3 years, you don't get that $18,000 of growth in your available space. But fine, you haven't been in Canada. That's reasonable. It's not. It's If you think about it, most of the rules are very logical and reasonable. But if you have any questions, call a professional and make sure that you know what you're doing. And I'm happy to take calls. I don't charge for these kind of for this kind of advice. So,
Amazing. Mike Nicholson, thank you for watching. He's asking, can we leave our RSPs or transfer them?
so you can leave your RSPs where they are. You can transfer them to a different Canadian institution. If you transfer them to the U.S., I don't remember the U.S. rules. I think there are certain kinds of considerations that are done, but it's usually recommended not to because withdrawing in Canada still counts. It reduces your the amount that you can contribute in the future. So you have to make sure that you're planning on staying in the States forever or for retirement or whatever time before you make a decision that that's what you want to do. So I advise against transferring them to the US, but certainly you can transfer them between institutions here in Canada.
Perfect. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. This is like a whole, all of these acronyms of things. RESPs and RDSPs. We
Yeah,
talked about TFSA and RRSPs. So let's talk about the RESPs and the RDSPs. What is that?
okay.
Why is that important?
So RESPs are registered education savings plans. RDSPs are registered disability savings plans. People with disabilities get those. So just to kind of explain very quickly, the government gives grants to people who need it for education. That's the RSP, the education one. RDSPs, if you have a disability and it's a registered disability with the government, they'll give you between 100 and 300% on top of whatever deposits you make to a limit. There's all the restrictions and limitations. What happens when you leave the country? The reality is nothing at all. If the person for whom the RESP is done or for whom the RDSP is done leaves the country, that's different. Then the money stays stable, stays static. You can't increase at any time once they're out of the country, but you don't have to. You can keep it there. You can transfer between institutions, like I said. There's no issue, but you can't increase once that beneficiary. So let's say, for example, somebody has um, a daughter that's 10 years old and has mild autism. Okay, something that usually is very easy that they can function in society. That's considered a disability for the Canadian government, so they can get the disability savings plan. They're 10 years old, so you want to save for their education. Mild autism usually means that they can still go to university. There's no issue with that. I've dealt with these a lot. This is why I can say these. I'm not a
Mhm.
doctor, but just because I have a lot of clients that go through these. Um, so they want to put in their money for their RESPs, their money for the RDSPs, but then they move down to the States. They move down to Texas or Florida for the better weather. So that money that they've already contributed, no problem. It's there. The government grants are still there. When it qualifies for taking out the money, which is a whole topic in and of itself, probably another half an hour, they can take the money out. No problem. Even if they go to school in the United States, there's no issue. But uh, you can't contribute more, and the government won't give more grants for that
Okay.
money.
Yeah,
Okay,
all of these like letters, I'm just reading it off.
that's fine.
We work a lot with Canadians, so whenever somebody has a question about financial things, we usually refer them clearly. I mean, I'm an immigrant as well. I'm from Mexico, and we don't have all this stuff. So it's amazing, from country to country how things change.
Yeah.
But I think there's one more that you want to talk about, right, Brad? One more class of things that we need to mention.
Was there? Hold on.
CPP and OAS.
Oh yeah, CPP and OAS. Thank you. There was.
Yes.
I think it's also. I'll actually include our RSPs in this discussion. What these are: CPP is Canada Pension Plan. If you've contributed, if you've worked in Canada over the years, you contribute to your Canada Pension Plan. Regardless of where you live in the world, once you qualify, you qualify. You can take the money, and they will pay you wherever you are in the world. So that's a good thing. So once you've contributed, because CPP is based on contributions, you can collect it. OAS is, hold on, let me actually just check because I wrote this whole thing down. Um, if you live in a country that has an agreement with Canada, and the United States is one of them, so it's good for this. Once you qualify for OAS, you can still collect it, but your OAS, or Old Age Security is what it's called. It's kind of like Social Security there, but in
Yeah.
Canada, um, if you make too much money, they pull back. For every like additional $3 you make, they pull $1 back. So if you're making $100,000 or 150 or whatever the number is, I don't remember off the top of my head, you're not getting any of this anyway, and your United States income does count against that. So it's good to be aware that if you've got a heavy retirement package, or if you're still working in the U.S., you might want not want you might want to put off taking out your old age security until the last possible minute, because it increases over
Got it.
time anyway. And the same with CPP. CPP, once you've contributed, it's yours. It doesn't matter how much money you're making. And with RSPs as well, it's the money's yours. You can start taking it out whenever you want. Just understand you're going to pay Canadian taxes on it.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So we're still live, guys. This information is like super important because Brad is practically telling you what you can take with you and what you cannot take with you, and what you need to do to make sure that you don't leave money behind if you want to take your money or if you want to leave it. So definitely, if you want to contact him, we'll put his information at the bottom of this post so that you can contact him for anything that you need related to what he just mentioned. But it comes down to the most important thing, which is planning and understanding what are your options. And if you have this information and you know what you can and cannot do, then you're able to plan ahead. So, Brad, this has been super important. All of these financial considerations is what people are always asking about because they just don't know. So, is there something that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you that you want to add?
No, I think you actually covered. I think you covered the gamut of all the things that I want to talk about, and that I think are essential. However, please, like if somebody has a question, even that they don't, even people who are watching later, after watching the recording later,
Yeah,
please reach out either to the Investing Across Borders team or to me personally, and we'll be happy to find out the answers. If we don't know the answers, we'll find them out. We're not afraid of looking things up. So
yeah,
it's important to know that you're in good hands, and that we're going to make sure that this is an easy transition for you.
of course, of course. Thank you so much, Brad. My name is Miri Lenoff. Next week, we have another guest. We have a lot of guests lined up for the next 4 weeks. So, hopefully, you guys can catch us on here. If you have any questions or anything, let us know. And again, we're always open to helping. And we have right now we're offering free consults for people who are thinking about living, working, investing, or playing across borders. So just we're gonna put the link at the bottom so that you guys. Oh, thank you. There we go, Raymond. Thanks for putting it down there. So you can schedule a call with our team. Right now they're free. We might have to raise them because we're getting a lot of consults. So make sure that you get in on that and if they're not free, you can still schedule a consult with the same link, but you would just have to pay for them. So thank you again, Brad, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we will see you next week with another of our guests at the Investing Across Borders show. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you very much. Take care.